Well, hello again. Welcome to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and I'm reading through 1 Corinthians, and I'm up to chapter 11, verse 17. And we have a whole section here on the Lord's Supper and various things that have been going wrong with this. We don't get too many of references like this in Paul's writing, so it's a particularly interesting little section here. Tutot de parangelon uk epainor, hoti uk es to kreson, ala es to heson sun ekeste. Proton men ga sun ekomenon humon, en ecclesia akue schismata en humen hubaken, chimeros te pistuo. Dega kai hiereses en humin anai, hina, and then followed by kai in brackets, hoi dokimoi phanaroi genontai en humin, sun komenon un humon epito auto, uk estin curia con depnon phagain. Hekastos ga to idion depnon pro lambane en to phagain. Kai hosmen pena hoste methue. Mega oikias uk ekete es to estien kai pinen. Tes ecclesias tu theou kataphonete kai kat aiskunete tus me ekontas. Ti epo humin. Ep aineso humas. En tuto uk epaino. So we begin with a participle here, parangelon, verb here meaning instructing. So instructing you in regard to this. Uk epaino, this is from epaineo, it's an epsilon contract verb. You see there's some contraction going on from the augment here. I do not praise, understand you, that sun ekeste, you come together, not for the better, but for the worse. These are comparatives here. Creson, it's creson, this is the neuter, and then this is hairson, the lesser, hence the worse. So being used in the neuter. So they're being used abstractly. So not for the better reason, but for the worse reason, perhaps. Proton men. Now we have a men here, but if you look forward, there's no corresponding det nearby. This happens occasionally in Greek. Paul, again, often starts a sentence and then forgets that he started with a men and doesn't put a corresponding de in. There's a technical term for this. It does happen in classical Greek occasionally. It's called men solitarium, the men without the de. It does happen quite a bit in Homer, in fact, but in good Attic Greek you rarely see it. So proton then, so first of all, now the genitive absolute here, when you gather together in the church, akuo, I hear their huparchein. Huparcho often just means is. It's often just used. It's got a slightly stronger sense of exists. So I hear that there exist en humin among you. It's that use of en, meaning among. I hear that there exist among you schismata, plural, neuter plural from schisma, cognate with our word schism, of course, and also scissors. Schisdo is the verb meaning to cut and to rent asunder, and so here it just means divisions, disagreements, perhaps. Chimeros te pistuo, and I believe some part of it. This is that indefinite te. In other words, I think some of it is true. So I hear about these stories and I think some part of it, I believe some part of it, I think some part of it is true. Dega kai hereses en huminenai, for it is necessary also for their ani to be haireses. Now this is the plural from hairesis. It's a third declension feminine noun. We get our word heresy is connected from, we get that from this word. It's connected with the verb haireamai in the middle. Haireo is to raise, or to take, I should say. Haireo is to take. In the middle, haireamai is to take for yourself, hence to choose. So it's got the idea of choosing things, and hence it comes to mean factions. It's quite a strong word, but here probably just differences. So he says, it is necessary for there to be differences among you, in order that, and then in brackets kai, also, hoi dokimoi, that is, the ones being approved right, the ones approved, perhaps understand by God, might become phaneroi, openly, or clear, or open, or visible among you. So there is need to be divisions or differences among you, in order that those who are approved right, understand by God, might become phaneroi, visible among you. Son ekomenon un, humon, genitive absolute again. So therefore, when you are gathering together, epi to auto, this is idiomatic here, literally into the same place. So in one place, another way of saying together. So when you are gathering together, it is not phagain to eat, kuriakon dapnon, very interesting expression here. I think it's the first time you see it in the New Testament. And it simply means, of course, the Lord's Supper. Kuriakos, something to do with the Lord. It's an adjective, and dapnon, supper. So it's the Greek for the Lord's Supper. So when you gather together, it is not to eat the Lord's Supper, and explains that, for hekastos, each one. Prolambane is a difficult word here. It means to begin beforehand, to forestall, to start eating before somebody else. Entophagain is this articular infinitive with n. So it's while eating. So it's when you are eating, or perhaps almost in the meal, if you like. So when you are eating, each one, starts eating his own dinner, his own supper, before everyone else, before the other. So instead of waiting and eating together, each one is trying to eat before everyone else in the meal. And hotmen pena hoste, so hosten pena hoste methua, a nice little use of men and de. So on the one hand, one person goes hungry, from penao, alpha contract verb, and someone, methuo, gets drunk. Now we get may with questions here, expecting the answer no. So it's, do you not have oikias, houses, for eating and drinking? So it's ace top plus the infinitive. So here it's got the sense of, I think, for the purpose of eating and drinking. Ace top plus the particular infinitive often means, it is often a purpose clause, so with the purpose of eating and drinking. So do you not have houses for eating and drinking? Or kataphronete, this again is a rhetorical question here. Kataphroneo is to despise. It's a good classical word. It's an epsilon contract verb. So, or do you despise, and it takes a genitive, the church of God, perhaps the gathering of God. It's always debatable whether to translate ecclesia here at this stage as church, but that'll probably do us. And do you, kata iskuna, are you not ashamed Do you not feel shame before those not having, that is, not having any food? Te apo humin. Now this is an hortatory subjunctive here, I think. So what would I say to you? What shall I say to you? Future here from epinio, same verb we had right up top here. And you see the epsilon coming in. This is one of those verbs where the epsilon doesn't lengthen. The linking epsilon doesn't lengthen, like callio and tellio. Will I praise you? In this matter, I am not praising you. Well, he continues on further about the institution of the Lord's Supper, and there are references, of course, back to the Gospels here. Ego ga par elebon apo tu kuriu, hoc kai par edoka humin, hoti ho kurios Jesus ente nukti he paradideto. Go to a new page there. For I receive, from Paralambano, I received, understand this apotukuri from the Lord. Interesting, he says, I received it from the Lord, because it is mentioned in the Gospels, that which also paradoka, from paradidomi, paradosis is tradition, so which I passed down to you, that the Lord Jesus en te nukti he, on that night in which paradidote, this is from paradidomi. Interesting, it's the same word we get up here. Paradidomi is just to hand over, and it to pass on, but it can also have the sense, this is in the middle here, and meaning to betray. Or it's passive. On the night in which he was handed over, he was betrayed. It's passive, it should say here, and it's an imperfect passive. So on the night in which he was being handed over, Ela ben Arton, he took Arton, bread, probably a loaf of bread, kai eucharistesas eklasen kai apen, tu tomuestin to soma to hupa humon, tu to poieti esten emen anamnesin, hos autos kai topoterion metatot de pnesai legon, tu to poterion he kaine diatheke estien to emo haimati, tu to poiete hosakis ian pinete es ten emen anamnesin. Hosakis ga eon estiete to arton tuton kai topoterion pinete, ton thanaton tu kuriu cat angelite acris hu elthe. And having given thanks, participle, aorist participle from Eucharistio, hence Eucharist, eklasen, he broke. Understand, he broke the bread. It doesn't, you've got to supply. So he says he took the bread, having given thanks, he broke. We'll understand it. This is from klao. As I mentioned before, it's that root comes into English with iconoclasm, the kla root. So the verb is klao here. This is just an aorist. So having given thanks, he broke, understand, the bread and said, this is my body, the one on behalf of you. We would have to, and there's variant readings here, you get verbs like the one given on behalf of you, the one broken on behalf of you. There are various readings here, but Paul often he's doing this so quickly he just leaves out words from time to time. So this is my body, the one, something on behalf of you, we might say given on behalf of you. Poiete, imperative, do this, literally for my remembrance. Now this is it's odd English, but it's quite good Greek. It is remembrance of me, but Greek will often put the of me into the accusative as an adjective. For my remembrance. It doesn't mean I'm remembering, it means remembrance of me. We get anamnesis for another word for recollection. So it's a way of recalling me, a way of remembering me. The third declension, feminine abstract noun, anamnesis, obviously connected with anamnesko, to recall or remember. Hos utos, and in the same way also the cup, metatodepnesai, after having had dinner. So likewise, after the dinner, in respect of the cup, it's all very shortened here, which is what Paul often does. This cup is he kaine diatheke, the new covenant, in my blood. Tuto poiete, do this, hosakis, as often as. Now this is of course from hossa and this akis ending, which is quite common in Greek. So it's as often as. E'an for an, you often get this in New Testament Greek, you've got to watch out for it. It's really just an with the subjunctive, but they write e'an. So as often as you might drink it, present subjunctive here from pino, and again aistain emein anamnesis, as a recollection of me or in remembrance of me. There's hosakis again, for as often as, and then we get the e'an for an with subjunctive. So as often as you might eat this bread, and you might drink the cup, kat engelete. Now, I don't think this is imperative. I think it's just you are proclaiming the death of the Lord, acris, who, got to supply chrono here, until the time when, elthe, subjunctive from erchomai, he might come. So as often as you eat this bread and you drink the cup, you are proclaiming the death of the Lord, acris hu elthe, until he might come. And the last section of this one is on partaking the supper unworthily. Hosti hos an esthie tonaton e pine topaterion tu kurio anaxios, enekos estai tu somatos kai tu hymatos tu kurio, dokimazdeto de anthropos hiaton kai hutos ectu artu esthieto, kai ectu poteriu pineto, hoga estheon kai pinon kruma hiauto esthie, kai pine me diacrinon tosoma. I'll just pause there. So that whoever, so it's hos an plus the subjunctive, so whoever might eat, from esthio, this is subjunctive, whoever might eat the bread or drink the cup of the Lord, unaxio, this is alpha privative, plus a linking nu, and then the axios. Axios is worthily, and this is unworthily, so perhaps in an unworthy manner. Esti enokos. Enokos is an adjective meaning to be guilty of. So it's literally, he will be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. I think you have to again supply something here, like profaning. So he will be guilty of profaning the body and the blood of the Lord. Paul again is rather loose with his language here, I think. Let a man, dokimadzeto is to examine carefully, to test out, from dokimazdo, quite a common word in the New Testament. So let a man examine carefully himself, or test out himself, and thus, in this way, another third person imperative, let him eat from the bread, and let him drink from the cup. Poterion, by the way, of course, is cognate with pino. The perfect of pino is pepoka, and you get that pot root or po or pot root. Poma is a drink, all connected with pino, and poterion is just another root connected with that, meaning a cup. So we get these present imperatives here, third person singular present imperatives, and thus let him eat of the bread and drink of the cup. Hogar estheon, the one eating and drinking, eats and drinks, krima, judgment, hiauto, on himself, if he does not diakrinon, not discerning the body, not rightly judging the body. Diakrino, another fairly common word in Paul. It means to judge rightly. So the one not judging rightly his own body, and again there's variant readings here, and different interpretations. I'll leave you to check the commentaries on this. Is eating and drinking judgment upon himself. So he eats and drinks, the one eating and drinking and not rightly judging the body, eats and drinks judgment upon himself. Diatuto en humin poloi asthenes kai arostoi kai koimontai hikanoi, eda hiatus di ekrinomen uk an ekrinometha. Krinomenoi de hupatu, in brackets kuriu, pi dometha, hiname sunta cosmo katakrithomen, hostia delphoi mu sun ekomenu estofagain, alelus ek dekeste, Aetis pena en oiko estieto, hiname escrima sonekeste. Tadeloipa hos an eltho dia taxamai. So on account of this, many among you, we have to supply, have become, it's not in the Greek, asthenes, have become weak. Now asthenes can also mean sick. It's connected with this stem root of strength, so to lose your strength, and asthenes can mean sick or ill. And aroste simply means weakened in body, really. It's an alpha privative, you get a doubling of the rho. The ros root here is from ronumi, to be strong. It's another word which is often used, I think, in later Greek to be sick. So for this reason, many of you are ill and sick, and hikanoi. Now this is this funny use of hikanos that you get commonly in Luke. It simply means some or many of you. It often means sufficient in earlier Greek, and sometimes does in the New Testament, but it also has that meaning of many. So many of you, koimontai, have died. Or perhaps it's actually a present, are dying. It's from koimao, it means to fall asleep, and it's used as a euphemism commonly in the New Testament for death. So for this reason he blames their behaviour and says that's led to sickness and illness and death. Eidehiatos diakrinomen, but if you rightly judge yourselves, we had that verb in the verse 29, if rightly you judge yourself, if we judge ourselves aright, we would not be judged, passive. And it's an imperfect passive here. So if we were it's an imperfect. If we were judging ourselves rightly, we would not be being judged. And being judged by the Lord, pi duometha, we are disciplined, from pi duo, connected with pius, of course, a child, so we are disciplined. Hiname, in order that we might not be condemned along with the world. This is the This is a passive, aorist passive subjunctive here, from katakrino, to condemn. So we might not be condemned along with the world. So it's first person plural. So in order that we might not be condemned along with the world, so that, my brethren, coming together, eis to phagain, for the purpose of eating. So in other words, when you are coming together for the purpose of eating, ek dekaste, dekestai from ek dekabai, wait for one another. And if someone pena is hungry, let him eat at home in oiko. Hiname, lest sun ekeste, you gather together a scrima for judgment. Tardeloi pahos anelthe diataxamai, and the other matters, diataxamai, I will arrange. This is from diatasso, it's the future, goes into the middle. So the other matters I will make arrangements for, well, hosan, as I might come. So it's almost when I might come. So when I come, I will make arrangements for the other matters. And that's the end of chapter 11.